morning. This is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids, and welcome to Season 4 and episode number 484 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show here on the Crier Media Network. Yeah! Today, recording day is Friday, October 4th, 2024. Thank God I am Fly Day. And it is going to be wonderful here at the Beaver Lodge. I'm looking forward to this weekend because rest is needed. Let's just put it that way. I'm your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver A. And with me, as always, is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. A big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Peppermaster, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and CanadianTarot.com. Before we go any further, Mr. Grizzly, how's your mental health doing today, sir?
Well, now that I have a full mug of coffee in front of me, I think it's going to be pretty good, to be honest with you. It's a Friday. I had a fairly productive day yesterday. Didn't get everything done that I set out to accomplish, but that's okay. Today's another day, and I'll just chip away at the pile, get some more work done, get some laundry done, get some narration done, reach out to a couple of different colleagues for some advice and information. Yeah, today's going to be a good day. So I'm feeling pretty good about it right now. I'd say the mental health is probably about a 8 out of 10.
Dang.
Yeah. I mean, that could change dramatically and go up to 10 or drop to 2, It's the roller coaster of mental health, right?
But when the good times come, laissez les beaux temps rouler.
Exactly.
As we say.
Exactly.
All right. Good morning, Kit Elaine. First one in the chat today. Look at you keener. Extra beaver points for you today. Good morning, Kit Mohan and all family, of course. Kit, Mr. Jim, and Miss Lori. Kit Elaine again. Yes, I've said that before. Sorry, I'm not as nimble with my eyeballs today. Miss Vim, Miss Cassie, Wishful, thank you so much for joining us today. Who else have we got here? Kit Jen, hello, lovely. Mwah. Big kisses. Who else? Kit Frankie, my friend, hello. Big hugs for you. Who else do we have? I think that's everyone this morning. Did I get everyone? Yeah, I did. Okay, there we go. Well, it's been an interesting week. It's been a bit of a busy week, but no, it's been an interesting week, an eventful week, because we started off with National Truth and Reconciliation Day, which is, very important. And then we had the U.S. vice presidential debate, and we had 2 interviews for you this week. Very busy. We've been busy here at the Beaver Lodge, and so I'm looking forward to the weekend. Do you want to get started off, Mr. Grizzly?
Yeah, well, You remember we talked a couple of days ago about how the ports in the U.S. were on strike, all the longshoremen were on strike.
Yes.
That did not last long.
No,
It,
that did not.
no, and Pete Buttigieg, much like I guess you could say his counterpart here in Canada, Seamus O'Regan, sat down and had a conversation with both sides and negotiated terms that everybody walks away with pleased. I say pleased because in a negotiation, nobody ever walks away happy because you always have to give something up. That's what negotiation is. But everybody walked away pleased, and he's saying, this is his direct tweet. Great news tonight for workers, shippers, and our economy as ports reopen with an agreement on a major wage raise. I'm like, okay, so they're getting paid for. He says, I'm thankful to the ILA union and USMX companies for reaching this deal. Department of Transport will continue engaging at every level in the supply chain as operations return to normal. Good governance.
Mm-hmm. This is according to The Hill in the United States. President Biden on Thursday hailed the agreement made between the International Longshoremen's Association, Union, and the U.S. Maritime Alliance, USMX, to end the port strike, arguing that collective bargaining works and is essential to the economy.
Yeah.
Quote, today's tentative agreement on a record wage and an extension of the collective bargaining process represents critical progress towards a strong contract. Biden, who has stood behind the striking workers, said in a statement, quote, collective bargaining works, and it is critical to building a stronger economy from the middle out and bottom up, he added. The ILA announced Thursday night that the USMX, which is an association of companies that operate East and Gulf Coast ports, agreed to boost pay for port workers and that union members would return to work immediately. The president applauded all the parties involved for coming together to reopen the ports. He congratulated the ILA dock workers, saying, quote, they deserve a strong contract, and noted that they sacrificed to keep the ports open during the COVID-19 pandemic. He also applauded the port operators and couriers and said all parties involved acted patriotically so that ports could reopen to ensure the availability of supplies for cleanup after Hurricane Helene hit the United States. And I'm sure at some point down the road, Joe Biden is going to make a similar comment because there's been some pressure from, well, I guess it doesn't really have to apply right now, but because there has been some pressure for the U.S. Republicans to try to manufacture a government shutdown prior to the election. But it seems like Speaker Mike Johnson might be going down the Kevin McCarthy route because he agreed to make a deal with those devil Democrats to keep business running until December. So during that period between the election, but before the new person takes over. So they're going to try and have another crisis moment then, it seems. The 2-day strike could have had serious consequences for the U.S. economy and posed political issues for Biden and Vice President Harris. So had it gone on, yes, but now that it has been quickly and easily resolved, workers got to strike, they got their benefits, they got their additional salary, the thing worked, there was minimal disruption, the system worked as it should.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Collective bargaining is important, and more employees need to have that tool. Unfortunately, you've had decades of governments that have tried to, and in many cases, defeated unions throughout the United States. And who do we have in this country that's anti-union and has voted against every positive step forward for workers in this country? Oh, what's his name? It's just on the tip of my tongue.
Except the anti-SCAB legislation, surprisingly.
Yeah, one thing.
Yes.
Oh, by the way, the name of that individual is Pierre Poilievre. He's voted against workers on everything except for one. And we're still kind of scratching our heads over that one.
Yeah, indeed. We very much are. On the other side in the United States, however, if you're looking at setting the table for the election, one of the things that was working in favor of the Democrats was that the price of oil was a little low, but over the last 5 days, it has gone up 8.68%. So I'm not exactly quite sure what has happened. I don't know if it's just because Iran decided to get itself involved a little bit to retaliate, or somebody made a I haven't heard it myself, but a friend of mine against whom I play tennis, who's pretty well politically connected, mentioned something about someone in the U.S. stating it might be time to bomb some oil areas in Iran or something. So that may have caused a spike, but international tensions usually will. But yeah, it's the price has definitely taken a little spike up over the last little bit here. I think on October 1st, WTI oil was selling at 66.54 a barrel, and yesterday it was selling at 74.86 a barrel. So that's about an $8 increase in the price per barrel, all within the space of 3 days. So when if you see gas prices going up, that $1.36.6 thing that you saw Brian Lilly celebrating while finding a way to not realize that it was 136.6, including the incredible rapid hyperinflation that is killing us all, and that terrible job-killing carbon tax that's sending all of us to the food bank. So yeah, but that temporary little bit of an advantage may not allow us being able to say, hey, look at the price of oil, or the price of gas may not be able to last all that long with this little price jump. But that's what's sort of going on. And in the United States, they will not have, whereas in Canada, our Bank of Canada Board of Governors will be meeting again on October 23rd to determine whether or not there's a rate cut. The next meeting of the governors of the Fed is not happening until after the election. So there will not be the tiny political boost that one can get from an extra rate cut in the days leading up to the election in the United States. But yes, the port workers thing in the United States is done and over with. I'm not sure. I haven't heard anything about the Canadian one being resolved yet, the one going on in Montreal at the moment. But that is still going on. The two main... not sure. Do they call it... is the whole thing called a port?
Yes.
Or is it, yeah, because the whole thing is the port. So I'm not quite sure what the name for it is, but there are two businesses, not two businesses, two stations, two something. Anyway, I'm not sure what the word is, unfortunately, that are closed down in Montreal, and those don't seem to. Like I said, hopefully they're still talking, and that we will have a solution coming. But same thing here for Canada. Our West Coast ports are not affected, as was the case in the United States. As well, they were not affected. It's just the East Coast ports. So there is interruption, but not like it would be in the United States, because all that was all up and down the East Coast and in the Gulf Coast as well. So it was way more disruptive. But don't get me wrong, it's disruptive in Canada as well.
Well, and something you might not be aware of is all of the major hotel chains in Montreal are on strike. They're still open, they're still operational, but you might have to walk through a picket line to get into the hotel.
Okay.
I meant to mention that the other day, and I don't know, slipped my mind. Yeah, but the hotel workers are on strike.
Oh,
so, yeah.
I did not know that.
And did you know that hotel workers are unionized in Quebec?
I did not know that either.
Yeah, well, Quebec has got more unions, I think, than any other province in the country, which is a good thing for workers, right?
Yeah, it started here, according to CBC, August 30th. Hotel employees walk off the job across Quebec in a surprise strike. More than 2,000 unionized hotel employees staged a surprise strike across the province on Friday. The strike affected 22 hotels in Montreal, Sherbrooke, and Quebec City. The employees who are affiliated with the CSN Labor Federation held a similar 24-hour walkout on August 8th. The walkout is part of a campaign of rotating surprise strikes to speed up contract talks. Negotiations that began in April between hotel owners and the union have stalled. The hotel employees want a 36% pay increase over 4 years and an end to the use of employment agencies, among other demands. Hotel managers have said that the union is asking for a lot and argued that working conditions in the industry are already good, but they also said they were willing to negotiate. At a press conference in front of the Hyatt Place Montreal, where workers picketed, David Bergeron-Cyr, the vice president of the CSN, said it is an opportune moment for workers to strike. Quote, right now, the hotel industry, they're making a lot of money. So now's the time for the most important parts of the hotel, which are the human beings, the women and the men, to have their fair share of those profits, he said. And that was a similar motivation for the port strike as well. When we're talking about the people who own them. Says, you guys have been like really raking it in.
Yeah, share the wealth.
You can share a little bit.
Yeah, that's
there we go.
What it boils down to is we need to table or turn off the corporate greed tap. Like we need to do something to just say, okay, you're making this money, you've got to share the wealth. Because what'll happen is if you share the wealth, you'll get more in the long run. You might lose a percentage point or 2%, 1 or 2% will be dipped into your profit, but you'll actually gain more in the long run because more people will have liquid cash to go out and spend on things. The goods and services that you provide, people will have the money to, spend.
Yeah.
I can't buy your product if I don't have the money to do it.
Right. So in Montreal, they said it's sorry, I thought it was two things, but it's the thing that was written is that it's the second largest port. The longshore workers in the Port of Montreal delivered the 72-hour strike notice on Friday of last week, warning of a 4-day work stoppage as of this week. The Maritime Employers Association stressed that they have tried to avoid a strike, but they have been unsuccessful. About 350 workers are estimated to be off the job, and the labor action could affect about 40% of the container shipments to the Port of Montreal. The Canadian workers have been without a contract since last December. So that's what's motivating the stuff going on over there. That one, hopefully, same thing. We'll get to a quick and, well, not as quick as the United States, but quick resolution. Maybe the fact that there is one in the United States and now that there is a model of a contract once the terms are released to the public to copy, to emulate, because that happens often in the auto industry, right? One of the big auto manufacturers gets tapped on the shoulder to go negotiate an initial deal, and then the other two sort of take that deal and try to get similar things, with slight differences, maybe depending on the realities of certain workplaces, but try to get something similar. Oh, okay, GM got 36%, so that's the ballpark, folks.
Yes.
Right, so it could be a similar situation as well here, because I'm sure that the Canadians and American colleagues talk to each other somewhere along the way, given that both strikes are happening around the same time. So it could be that, just sit still, Canadians, make it last a couple of days longer. We'll have something for you soon. Okay, workers helping workers out.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, and speaking of, just gonna, since we were talking a little bit about the price of oil and stock markets and a little bit, it seems that stateside, the period during which insiders that helped form the company were not allowed to trade their shares in Donald Trump's Truth Social, that date has passed by. And even though Donald Trump keeps on running to the microphone saying that he's not selling at all, even though he seems to be more and more on Twitter, which can't be helping. One of his shareholders on the very first day decided, I'm selling mine. So he sold about $1 billion worth of shares because, it seems that the company is fully tanking. At the time I took this note, the shares have dropped about 82% from their peak. So that may have not been a good decision. And yesterday we also mentioned that Blaine Higgs seems to be backing out of debates in New Brunswick. Well, it's happening in the States as well. Donald Trump has said nothing about the proposed debate on CNN yet, other than he probably will not be going. And it seems that both he and Kamala Harris agreed to do a one-on-one interview with 60 Minutes.
Hmm.
Apparently, this is a common thing in the United States. Both main candidates do an interview with 60 Minutes. And, well, Donald Trump still has hurt fifis from his interview last time with Leslie Stahl. So he has decided he is not doing it this time. There was also the thing about him saying that the good folks at 60 Minutes would not agree to not fact check him during the interview. So he's not doing the interview.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, well, if 60 Minutes is still the most watched current affairs and public affairs show in the United States, I'm sure candidate Harris would be quite happy to have 100% of the field to herself. Hey. It kind of surprises me in a way that Trump doesn't want to show up at certain things. And see, that's what I keep on saying, right? When everybody says that he's all out of it and he's just so stupid and whatnot, he's still somewhat aware, right?
Oh, yeah.
He's still somewhere. He still has managed for about 10 years not to say anything negative about Putin. I keep on saying that requires an incredible amount of discipline for someone who seems so totally erratic. And, Pierre Polyev, what Blanchet said about Polyev, that he must have so many mirrors in his house.
Because he loves to look at himself. Yeah.
Trump, certainly. I mean, I totally imagine Trump and Polyev as two people that would attend the opening of an envelope if they knew there would be cameras and a microphone there.
Mm-hmm.
So that Trump doesn't want to be on 60 Minutes?
Yeah.
The highest rated, and we know how much he loves ratings, current affairs and public affairs show. That I've just never known the man to pass up an opportunity for visibility, for self-promotion. So interesting. Maybe he's feeling the heat. Who knows? All right. What else have we got for you today, Kits and Cubs?
Well, I thought we should address the 25,000 healthcare workers could be on strike in Manitoba as of Tuesday.
Were you going to say Manitoba?
Yeah, Tuesday in Manitoba. I blended it together. That's half the total staff, the largest strike in Manitoba since the infamous or famous Winnipeg General Strike in 1919. So yeah, that's big, and it's unfortunate that it has to come to a strike. I was hoping that WOB would be able to fix this and avoid this, but I guess they're going to have to go to the bargaining table and negotiate something.
Jeez.
Yeah,
Now,
we'll see what happens.
In one way, I'm not surprised because WOB Canoe has been premier for a relatively short time.
Oh, yes.
So a lot of this is probably accumulated stuff and demands from previous governments. And, as much as we love WOB, and we do, I mean, he's not the chief negotiator in this. Yeah. So there's only so much that he can do. And there's only so much that a gregarious personality and a 1,000-watt smile can do as well when we're negotiating contracts.
If I understand correctly,
people got to eat.
He said there's just no money available, which I'm like, well, I'm sure you can find it if you do a little bit of looking and digging.
Yeah. This, according to the CBC here, this is from yesterday. Manitoba's looming healthcare worker strike is causing stress for home care clients in particular. So they are definitely worried about this. Mm-hmm. But it says that healthcare workers in Manitoba have some of the lowest wages in the nation. The starting wage for some is $17.07 an hour. Last week, 25,000 healthcare support workers represented by the Canadian Union of Public Employees and the Manitoba Government and General Employees Union served notice of job action on Employer Shared Health, the organization that oversees healthcare delivery in the province, set for October 8th. If a strike is called, workers will include healthcare aides, laundry workers, dietary aides, ward clerks, recreation coordinators, and other healthcare support staff in hospitals and personal care homes, as well as those in the home care program. MGEU's lead negotiator for support services said in an interview last week that a strike would result in a cut of roughly 30% in home care services to a 25 to 50% reduction in clerical work and a 5 to 10% cut in the work of healthcare aides. Kyle Ross, president of the MGEU, said in an interview on Wednesday that Shared Health asked for more time to put another offer together after their last proposal was refused in a union vote. And just to be clear, when I say MGEU, that's the Manitoba Government and General Employees Union. There. Kyle Ross is quoted to say, "Then they returned to the table yesterday with everything that our members already rejected. There was not a penny more." Shared Health said in a news release that all efforts would be made to minimize service disruptions to clients. However, cancellations and delays or changes to services were possible, and home care clients are encouraged to contact the health region that provides their services if they have questions or concerns. So that's about where that stands now. That's not...
Yeah.
$17.07 an hour?
Yeah. It's not enough.
That's really not enough. That's frighteningly low.
Yeah, it's terrible. I mean, it really
I mean, in most places, a living wage is well over $20 to start with, right?
Correct.
I'm actually shocked at how low that is.
Yeah, agreed.
So, I mean,
that's why I highlighted it. It's like, this is not good. That is that's not a living wage.
No, not at all. Wow. Back home, federally, Kits and Cubs, according to iPolitics, it seems that word on the tweet for those worrying or wondering, like, is an election coming anytime soon? It seems that what I predicted not sure if it's a few weeks ago now. Yeah, it's been a few weeks now since Jagmeet Singh pulled the plug. Is probably coming to pass for those of us in the citizenry who really, really wanted an election really right now in 2024 before Christmas. I hate to say I called it, but I called it. It's probably not happening. According to Davis Legree in iPolitics, the headline is, "Don't expect the NDP to trigger a fall election, say party strategists." With the Liberals rejecting the Bloc Québécois demand in exchange for confident support, which was a plot twist we did not see coming, the NDP could soon be the only party willing to help the Prime Minister's minority government to help keep it in power. However, according to party strategists, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh should be in no rush to trigger a snap election. It's been less than a month since Singh walked away from his party's supply and confidence agreement with the governing Liberals, though his party has already helped defeat 2 conservative non-confidence motions during the fall primary session. Singh has repeatedly said he's not looking for a new agreement with the government, but rather he will evaluate each confidence vote on a case-by-case basis, leaving the future of the current parliament uncertain. And of course, Mr. Singh keeps on saying that it's on a case-by-case basis in the interest of Canadians, which we know is bullshit. Our interest is not the primary one here.
I don't think it has anything to do with his pension either, as Pierre Poilievre would like to have you think, and everything to do with just hanging on to his seat.
Yes. Singh has repeatedly... Yes, I completely agree with you, Mr. Grizzly here. Earlier this week, Singh would not clarify what it would take for him to vote non-confidence or whether he'd consider moving his own non-confidence motion. For former New Democrat advisor Jordan Licknitz, the NDP needs time to distance themselves from the Liberals, both in the polls and in the minds of voters. Quote, "It's still been just a few weeks since the end of the supply and confidence agreement," said Licknitz, now the Canadian program manager at the Friedrich Ebert Stiftung Foundation. Wow, say that 3 times fast. Friedrich Ebert Stiftung. I can't even get it twice.
Just don't do it.
It just hasn't been a lot of time. They have to create more of a gap between themselves and the Liberals, especially with the Liberals just continuing to sink in the polls. We haven't found their floor yet. And on that note, there are 2 polling companies that just came out with numbers showing the Liberals in third and behind the New Democrats by like 1 point or so, but showing the Liberals in third. So that should get the people who cover politics only through polls, get some tongues wagging for the next little while here. Public opinion data suggests that Conservatives have maintained a double-digit lead over all the parties, but a recent string of polls shows the Liberals and NDP tied nationally, with New Democrats in ahead outside of Quebec. In particular, a recent poll from Nanos Research and the Conservatives at 42%, leading both the Liberals and NDP, which are tied at 22%. Some pundits have suggested the NDP should look at triggering an early election to capitalize on the movement in the polls and overtake the Liberals. If you're competing to win, hey, we just slid into second place, call the election now so we can secure second place, is not sure how that's strategic. Now, if you have an incremental strategy, let's go from fourth to second this time, and maybe we'll go to second to first the following time. That may be it, but Jagmeet Singh explicitly said, I'm running for the position of Prime Minister.
Yes.
So
which is not a position you run for.
Yes. Well, I know that. But colloquially, if we
Yes.
say like this, I'm in it to win it, is basically what he's saying, then it's like, hey, it looks like we've got a firm shot at second place. Like 2 days after the first poll shows that you're tied for second or that you're ahead by 1, let's call the election now. Seems to me to be a bit of counting chickens before they hatched. Yeah. So whoever's advising the NDP go now is not the NDP's friend.
No.
Let's just put it that way.
I have to add to this that I have been delighted, impressed, and happy over the last couple of days by seeing the amount of people coming online saying, we don't elect our prime minister. We elect members of parliament. The leader of the party can choose to ascend to the position of prime minister and form government. And it's like civics lessons. They're getting through to people. People are learning how our system works. Of course, our idiot premier went on a rant about the gentleman in Toronto who was out on bail and shot a police officer, saying the federal government's got to get this in order. It's provincial jurisdiction, Doug. It's your responsibility, you chowderhead.
The NDP is going to continue to try and squeeze anything they can out of the Liberals, like there's still more juice to be had there, she said. I think it's clear that the current arrangement is dramatically less stable than what we've seen over the last 2 years. But the only people who are truly in a hurry to have an election are the Conservatives. That's again Leibniz saying that. All this boils down to one clear theme. Don't expect a fall election. There was also the belief of Leah Ward, previously the Director of Communications for former Alberta Premier Rachel Notley. According to Ward, there's reasons for the NDP to feel, quote, optimistic, including the polling trends and recent by-election performances, but it isn't enough to immediately send Canadians to the polls. Quote, I certainly don't expect them to trigger an election before Christmas, they told iPolitics, though I think it's clever that, in anticipation of an election, whether it's sooner or later, they've already started to frame the questions for voters. The question that they're putting in front of voters is that the next election is a choice between Pierre Poilievre's Conservatives and the NDP. Ward, now the vice president of Wellington Advocacy, said that if they were advising Singh, their advice would be to, quote, let it steep and give Canadians more time. Quote, it's always important as political strategists to remember that things happen quickly in Ottawa, they said. They happen quickly in our offices and in our strategy documents, but it takes people longer to see those changes and those shifts. Ward also emphasized the financial element of the elections, noting that the NDP had paid off its $22 million in debt. That being said, the NDP's fundraising numbers placed the party third, behind the Conservatives and Liberals. Last year, the Conservatives brought in $35.2 million from supporters. The Liberals received $15.6 million, while the NDP raised only $6.8 million, according to other news outlets. There's also the legislative repercussions of triggering an early election, which effectively kills all bills that haven't yet become law. Should Singh help topple the government in the coming days, it could spell the end of multiple pieces of legislation negotiated under the Supply and Confidence Agreement, like Pharmacare, Bill C-64, and amendments to the Canada Elections Act, Bill C-65, both of which are still progressing through Parliament. C-64 in particular has been a core priority for the NDP in recent months, and, considering it currently sits at the committee stage in the Senate, it's unlikely Singh would pull the plug on the Liberals until the bill receives royal assent. And I believe there has been some movement in the Senate. I believe it's passed the second stage yesterday in the Senate. I believe it was Senator Kim Pate that had announced that on Twitter. When asked this week whether bringing down the government was off the table until pharmacare became law, Singh would not say. He could probably say that. He doesn't have to be coy on that one. See, there are times to be coy, and there are times to be coy. So I'm not going to scoop myself. And there are times where you're just being coy because you're just being coy, which serves you nothing. I mean, you negotiated this 2 years ago in the supply and confidence agreement. Everybody knows you want it. You're spending the last 2 years telling us how much you've been forcing the Liberals, kicking and screaming, to do it, which it's kind of interesting because you're not forcing them now because you left the deal and it's still moving forward. So that's not a feather in your cap. But given that there's everybody in the nation knows that you want pharmacare, I mean, the whole fact that we have national healthcare in the beginning is like a CCF, then NDP thing. So I think you can go out on a limb, Mr. Singh, and say, yeah, we're sticking around until it passes. And I don't see why you wouldn't, because given that the Conservatives keep on sticking it to you, why won't you go, chicken? You said you didn't support them. You said they were to this and to that and to this, so why not take them down? Because we want pharmacare to pass, you dumbass. There's your answer.
Simple
in a can. It's like, and there's like nobody, even the most staunch conservative voter, they'll probably turn around. Oh, God, well, that's not true. You just want your pension. But I mean, I think they can understand that.
Yeah. Well, you got to look at. I mean, Pierre Poilievre in August was saying the school food program doesn't work. It doesn't exist. It was August. There were no children in school. The dental care program doesn't exist. There's 800,000 people that have signed up for it.
80% of providers are signed up.
80%. So what next? He's going to scream about pharmacare. Nobody's getting the drugs they need.
Oh, he's already said that.
Oh, okay. So, yeah.
Yep. He said that about that one too. Well, I mean, that one is true. The program doesn't exist yet.
Doesn't exist yet. They haven't implemented it.
Yes, but that's what he said. Like this, I can't tell whether or not I'm going to cut it. It doesn't exist yet. Let's see if they actually make it exist first. That's what I mean. This type of coyness. It's like, again, Pierre, the NDP absolutely wants it and is not going to call an election before it's there.
Of course not.
And the Liberals can't afford to back down on it now.
Well, and I think
because it would be a terrible bad look.
I think even the Bloc Québécois would support a national pharmacare program. It benefits everybody.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Yeah. So I mean, again, right? You can go out on a limb on that one.
Yeah.
Like this, and actually say something definitive. So yeah, I don't understand. It's like, are you waiting until the government passes it? Oh, I don't know. I can't say.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. It's something that's very important to us. That pharmacare, it was like part of the original Medicare plan. But we talked about it first along with dental. We're bringing the plan all together as it should have been proposed in the first.
Right from day one.
It was from day one. Of course, we're the NDP. We're the party of healthcare. Of course, this is important. Like, of course, we're staying here until it gets done. We don't want, especially since the main criticism of Jagmeet as well from this move is like, hey, you're sacrificing all these programs that you said you care about. Well, do you care about them? Really? Because right now, it doesn't seem like you're doing all you can to make sure that they get passed. And it's not just get passed, remember. Like, getting passed is one thing, but getting passed and exist long enough for enough people to use it, to see the value of it, to determine that they kind of like it and don't want it to disappear. So it's like, if you pass it and then you go into an election and like a month later,
try and make it disappear, you will.
It's like, you got to give, not only does it have to pass and it has to be implemented, but you got to give people time enough to love it. Yes. And if we go until October 20-something next year, that's still just a year, and it hasn't even passed yet. And when we're talking about, like, when President Obama in the United States passed the ACA, now he had to do it in his first term because he actually had the 60 senators in the first 2 years, but he did that the first 2 years, and then he was not able to accomplish much after.
No,
because they never forgave them for that. The Republicans never forgave him for that. So he wasn't but he had to do that in the first 2 years for it to exist another 2 years to get people to like it. And then he really had to win a second term.
well,
So
and
the
let's
reason John McCain put his thumb down is because by the time that happened, it had existed for 6 years.
yeah.
And the Republicans were all on record saying, we have to kill this fast because people are going to like it. And if they like it, they won't want to get rid of it. Well, they were right on that.
Well, let's also remember that you had the Koch brothers who, through Citizens United, which is a bullshit name for a giant corporate lobbyist organization, had people out in the streets protesting, saying, "Keep your hands off my health care." I'm like, wait a minute. Let me see if I get this correct. You have convinced the low information voter through manipulative propaganda like slogans, noun the verb the noun, if you will, to keep your hands off my health care, people who have no health care. And then convince people that Obamacare is bad. But the same people will say, without the ACA, I don't know what I would do. Hey, dum-dum, that's Obamacare. It's called the Affordable Care Act. But again, low information voter gets a 3-word slogan in their head, fires them up, and is convinced the government's going to take my health care away. You don't have any. The government actually gave you health care for the first time. All you had to do was sign up for it. But nope, Koch brothers didn't like it because they stand to lose some money because they're in the insurance business, amongst other things. Anyway, Koch brother now because one of them died. Oh, what a shame. Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Another thing that's going around is that the Prime Minister did an interview or chat with Nate Erskine-Smith on his podcast show on Commons. And they talked a little bit about...
an hour's worth.
Yes, an hour's worth. But they talked a little bit about the supply and confidence agreement. This, according to the CBC. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says it bugged him, quote, when NDP leader Jagmeet Singh ended his party's supply and confidence agreement with the Liberals without calling first. Quote, the relationship obviously wasn't what I thought it was, Trudeau said in a recent conversation with Smith on the Uncommons podcast. Quote, I know that if I had chosen to end it, it would have started with a call to him. I would have said, you know what, Jagmeet, it's not going to work. You make those tough calls. For more than an hour, Trudeau and Erskine-Smith, a maverick Liberal MP with a record of voting against his own government, touched on a number of topics, including his party's recent by-election losses, his initial approach to Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, the message he'll take into the next election, and his biggest regret as Prime Minister. The supply and confidence agreement struck between the Liberals and the NDP in March 2022 committed the NDP to supporting the Liberal government on confidence votes in exchange for legislative commitments on NDP priorities. The deal, which ensured the survival of the minority Liberal government, was the first such formal agreement between two parties at the federal level. Singh announced the agreement was over last month. Quote, I don't know why he didn't reach out to call me because I know he's genuine in wanting to see this country move forward in more progressive ways, Trudeau said. Quote, for him to do that way, it bugged me. It bugged me because I know these things matter to him. Trudeau said he thinks Singh made the decision because he was under pressure from his base to end the working relationship with the Liberals and create distance between the parties before the recent by-elections in Winnipeg and Montreal. Quote, I wouldn't do that, Trudeau said, adding he believes, quote, there's no hard feelings over what happened between the two leaders. Singh said he was ending the pact because the Liberals did not stand up to corporate interests. In those recent by-elections, the NDP managed to hang on to its seat in Winnipeg, but the Liberals lost the safe seat of La Salle-Aymar-Verdun in Montreal to the Bloc Québécois. That defeat came weeks after the Conservative candidate Don Stewart bested his Liberal opponent in Toronto, St. Paul's, a seat held by the Liberals for more than 30 years. Quote, one of the things that I know I would have liked to have been able to do earlier is get the candidate in place and working the ground for longer, Trudeau said. In both these by-elections, we didn't give Leslie Church enough time on the ground. We didn't give Laura Palestini enough time on the ground. Whose fault is that? Erskine-Smith, who is not running in the next election, asked Trudeau why, when Poilievre was named Conservative leader in September 22, the Liberals didn't, quote, take the fight to him early on and instead gave Pierre, quote, a little more of a free pass since he became leader. A little more of a free pass to give him 2 damn full years.
Yeah.
Trudeau said the former Prime Minister Stephen Harper tried that immediate attack approach when Trudeau became leader, and none of that really worked. Did it define me? Not particularly, because Canadians sort of had an idea who I was, he said. Canadians don't have much of an idea who Poilievre is. He's been in the House for 20 years. Nobody knows who he is. Under Poilievre's leadership, the Conservatives now lead the Liberals by almost 43% to 23%, according to the CBC's poll tracker. Trudeau said that he could have attacked Poilievre as soon as he became leader, but thought his attention at the time should be focused on the pandemic recovery and fighting inflation.
Yes.
Quote, "It could have worked, it might have worked, but at the same time, there was something that didn't feel true to me in terms of, now I'm going to pick a fight with him when I should be fighting for Canadians, when I should be trying to tackle inflation," he said. The Prime Minister said he also calculated that it might be more advantageous to save those attacks for later. Quote, "If I'm going to drive someone down in the polls a year or two before an election, or even 3 or 4 years before an election, is that the best time to knock them down and lift myself?" he said. "Or do I want that to happen a little more organically, closer to the actual day when people choose?"
Playing the long game is what we call this, kids.
Yes.
Playing the long game.
But it does. I agree in playing the long game,
Mhm.
but I would have
Started to push back.
sooner. Peppered a couple of things
Yes.
along
Agreed.
the, like 2 years is a lot of runway.
Yeah. Well, in that time frame,
Especially when
you
you were
can-
seeing how much CPP was flooding the zone.
exactly. This is what I'm getting at, right? But in playing the long game, you gotta just step in every now and then and just jab.
Yep.
Jab.
Yep.
And he hasn't done that up until very recently.
Yep. I agree. "We have to highlight some of the things that we have done that quite frankly are at risk," he said. Trudeau said those accomplishments include the Canada Child Benefit, which has helped reduce poverty in Canada, a national climate change policy, dental care, childcare, and progress towards a school meals program and limited pharmacare. Quote, "But if Canadians don't understand the things that we've done and that we've delivered, then there's a real challenge," he said. "We also have to have that positive ambition of, quote, this is what we are going to do together in the next mandate. This is the next step of where we're going. And that's something we're busy putting together with caucus and everyone right now." Erskine Smith asked Trudeau if he had any regrets lingering from his 9 years in the office. Without hesitation, the Prime Minister cited his handling of the electoral reform file. And what comes next is really interesting because it's what I've been saying all along. So it surprises me. Well, I mean, in one way it doesn't, but it does. During the 2015 election, Trudeau promised to scrap the first-past-the-post system and replace it with, quote, "an electoral system that does a better job of reflecting the concerns, the voices of Canadians from coast to coast to coast." That was the promise.
Mhm.
This will be the last election under first-past-the-post. We need an electoral system that does a better job. Now, some people on the far left, further on the left, said, "Yay, we're getting proportional representation. He promised." He never promised
Never
that.
promised that.
Trudeau later abandoned the promise when he saw rising support for proportional representation, the option favored by Erskine Smith, rather than Trudeau's preferred option of a ranked ballot. I'm not sure that that's an actual factual statement.
Yeah, that sounds a little
That sounds a little
spurious.
like opinion masquerading as fact here, because I don't remember anybody coming on the record saying that. It's like, if you're going to attribute motive, it has to be motive that someone was clear about. Otherwise, it's your opinion on what someone's motive is being presented as a fact. Reflecting on that decision this week, Trudeau said he made 2 key mistakes in managing that file. The first, he said, was allowing proportional representation to become part of the conversation at all. Hello. What I said. The second one was me not using my majority to bring in the model that I wanted, he said. "I believe in ranked ballots. You give people choices to rank 1, 2, and 3, and parties will try to pitch to be people's second or even third choice. And that brings in a more cooperation and overlap between political parties in a way that counters anyone that is aggressively trying to polarize. But the consequences of changing our electoral system are so significant. When you change the way people are elected, it becomes really hard to change it. That idea of needing consensus across and not having it is why I chose to say, okay, I'm not going to risk an irreversible change just to fulfill a promise I made to change this." Trudeau described having to abandon electoral reform as, quote, "gut-wrenching." So, as I said, Trudeau should have just ran on this. Because I propose changing the way we vote to ranked ballots, rather than just saying this will be the last election.
Yeah.
Be specific about the form of electoral
Left it too
change
vague
that you
and
want.
open to interpretation. And as a result, people immediately jumped on him going, "We're going to have proportional representation." Never said that.
Yeah. And then he says he regrets not using his majority to bring in the model that I wanted. And that, I can understand him regretting it now, given where the polls are. But it's what he said after that really
Mhm.
matters. And like I had been saying that all along, that's why you can't do it. So when the NDP turned around and said, "But you promised, use your majority," it's like, wait a minute, NDP. Remember at the start of the process when they were forming the Electoral Reform Committee,
Mhm.
and because the Liberals had a majority as a government at that time,
Yes.
when they formed the committee, the Liberals had the majority on the committee, and the very first thing you did was rush to every camera and microphone you could see and find and say, "The Liberals are going to use this to impose ranked ballots on us. We can't have that." And then the Liberals gave themselves a minority on that committee.
Mhm.
That was really the mistake. The Liberals should have just said, "You know what? Elections have consequences." But the Prime Minister allowed themselves to have the minority on the committee, and then the shit show that the committee became
Yes.
happened.
I can understand why he did it, though, for the sheer optics of it, because otherwise it looks like he's coming in with an iron fist. If he is,
Yes.
you know.
And that's why he says here, right? But the consequences of changing our electoral system are so significant.
Mhm.
That idea of needing consensus across and not having it. So he didn't have the consensus across. And then the NDP turned around and said, "Well, you had a majority. Why didn't you just?" Well, it's like, well, wait a minute. Weren't you the guys at the start of this process that said we have to fear the Liberals because they will use their majority to push through the system that they want? Now you're saying, "Hey, the Liberals, why didn't you use the majority to push through the system that we want?"
Mhm.
It's not whether or not he pushed through the system he wanted or the system that you wanted that makes it that he's not a dictator. If
Yeah.
he pushes through a system,
That's dictator.
that's dictation, regardless of the system.
Yeah.
So the NDP was like ironically confessing, no, we actually like a dictator if the dictator puts in place the things that we like.
Funny how governments and parties often say that sort of thing.
I was
Right?
like, it's like, excuse me, it's like, did you guys forget you're the NDP?
Yeah. Well,
It's like
I,
we
I,
want
I,
dictatorship in order to through dictatorial means. We want a more democratic process where our votes will now count. Was essentially their line. We
yeah.
need to use dictatorship to get more democracy.
I'm what? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Baking powder?
Yeah,
Pardon?
it was not consistent. So yes, if Mr. Jim goes, makes me wonder if JT gets the majority next election, if he will put in the ranked ballot. I say he's got nothing to lose. Run on it outright
Mhm.
this time.
Yeah.
Just run on it. Run on the ranked
Curious.
ballot.
Well,
It's like, go get yourself a mandate for it specifically. And that's was the thing with the first election, right? Is he would have
mhm.
had a mandate for it specifically. Now, what you would have, other parties would have turned around and said, as we always say, which is true,
Mhm.
this nobody agrees 100% with a platform for a government. They vote on a preponderance.
Mhm.
Most of the platform is good. This doesn't mean that they fully support everything. Like just because he got
No.
a majority doesn't mean he has a mandate to change the electoral system unilaterally. And they would have been right
Mhm.
because, but at least the Prime Minister could turn around and say, "Dude, I ran on it explicitly. I said it on day 4 of the campaign."
I told you what I was going to do. Don't get mad at me when I do it.
Right now, everybody's going to turn. Yeah, but it was a changed election. You were going to say, "Don't
Too
hate
bad.
the player, hate the game."
Yeah.
Right? Like this, and I'm trying to change the game. Why
Yeah.
you mad, bro? So it would have been one of those things like Obamacare. He would have had to do it quick, and he would have had to do it fast, and allow a couple
Mhm.
of years to go by, and so that
People
people can.
recognize that, oh, this is what we wanted, and now we don't like it. Or we love it, one or the other.
Yeah, but the Prime Minister is true though. Is correct that once you make a change to a system like that, it's very hard to go back like 4 years later. Well,
Mhm.
that didn't work, and change it back again.
Yeah.
So you have to be damn sure.
Yes.
Yeah, because one consequence of that could have been that the Liberals push that through. They still lose under the next election, and then
Mhm.
the brand is dead for life. Because if people get mad at a unilateral push to change an electoral system, um, a lot of people have long memories,
Mhm.
and that could be a move that a party never lives down as well. So, yeah, but he's talking about it. Honestly,
which is interesting.
finally, this is an interview that he should have done, and these are comments that he should have made like 6 years ago,
Agreed.
7 years ago. Not now. The impact's a little late now, unfortunately. But
there you go.
Better late than never.
Yes.
Again, as we keep on saying, we don't care when you arrive, so long as you arrive. It seems the Prime Minister has finally arrived on that. But that could have and should have happened a long time ago. Oh well. Say la vie.
Oh well.
You can't have it all at once, kids.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have it all at once. Do you have anything else, Mr.?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I want to share. First, let me put an image on screen here for those of you watching the YouTube live feed. What we're looking at now is a satellite view of Toronto. And there's a section here in the middle section. Let me just blow it up where you can see what exactly it is that we're looking at here. This is the Royal Astronomical Society. And this is the Ontario Science Centre right beside it. And all this green space and this area back here, if you can see the cursor, it's hard to see, I understand. This is all part of the Ontario Science Centre, right? And just north of that is a development taking place from one of Doug Ford's developer friends, right? We know this. We've talked about this before. Where am I going with this? Well, I'll tell you in a second. It's interesting that Doug Ford declared that the Science Center roof was about to collapse when apparently that was not the case. And this just in, well, from about an hour ago from Colin DeMello, roughly 1 in 12 Ontario schools have the same roof panels that forced the closure of the Ontario Science Centre, according to internal government documents. But boards are being offered no specific funding to manage the cost of replacement or repair. Now, why does that matter? Well, Doug said the Science Center is not safe, so we're going to close it, after architects and engineers said, no, that's not the case. They had a massive rainstorm where there was flooding in Toronto. Science Center was okay. The building was designed to last for 300 years. But if we go back to that map here and take another look, all of that prime land where the Ontario Science Centre is, including all that green space south of Eglinton Avenue, yeah, he wants to offer that up to the gentleman who owns the development area north of Eglinton Avenue, directly across from the Ontario Science Centre, where he intends to build a new subway terminal. Do I have to paint the picture here for you for the level of corruption taking place in the province of Ontario? Oh, and while we're at it, did you know that they finally, I have it in the Toronto Star here, Doug Ford's government releases details of Ontario Place lease with Therm Spa.
Yep. That's where I was going to go next with it for you.
95-year lease. Now, let me just pull this over here where I can read it a little bit better
From
for
Global, I believe, right?
Yeah. Well, I have it from the Torstar, but it says Ontario's 95-year lease with Therm, the Austrian firm building a controversial spa resort at redeveloped Ontario Place, puts pressure on the provincial government to get moving on a new parking structure or risk paying Therm millions of dollars per year in damages. Premier Doug Ford's government released. Yeah, well, I'm getting to it. Premier Doug Ford's government released details of the lease Thursday after years of public concern, secrecy, and controversy over plans to replace trees and other natural features with a towering indoor spa and water park on the mostly shuttered theme park's West Island, along with an expanded Budweiser stage and relocated Ontario Science Centre. They tore down most of the trees yesterday, by the way. The lease requires at least 1,600 parking spots for Therm and another 200 for Live Nation, which is expanding the Budweiser stage on the waterfront site. However, Infrastructure Ontario's Michael Lindsay told reporters that the Ford government plans to build a total of 2,500 new spots so people can visit by car to also enjoy the Science Centre, new parkland, and other attraction. This is where it gets interesting. If the province fails to meet its parking obligations before the spa resort opens in 2030, or whichever comes first, the lease compels taxpayers to give Therm $5 per spot per day for a portion of the unbuilt spots, which Lindsay said could total $2.2 million a year. Who signed this lease and who wrote it? Because this has got to be the worst lease ever.
I'm just don't understand what is the damage that could happen to Therm Spa if we don't
Not
build
enough
a
parking spots.
parking spot for them.
And why are we building it again? I know that.
Why can't just Therm build it for itself?
And it looks
What's
like
the
it's going to
damage?
cost almost $1 billion to build it because they have to dig deep right next to Lake Ontario, which means you have to go into a lot of engineering, soil sampling, and a lot of designs to come up with it. It says benefits of the redevelopment plan, Infrastructure Ontario said in a briefing documents, include at a minimum nearly $2 billion in estimated revenue contributions from Therm Canada to the province over the duration of the lease, and $700 million in upfront capital investments from Therm Canada. The duration of the lease, a 95-year lease, $2 billion in estimated revenue over 95 years. It doesn't seem like a lot to me. In over 95 years. $1 billion is 32 years when we put it from minutes to seconds. Seconds, 1 million seconds is 32 days. 1 billion seconds is 32 years. So you double that to 2 billion seconds, 64 years.
Yeah.
Doing the math, it's like we're still 31 years shy. 31 years shy of coming up what it should be. You hear what I'm going? See where I'm going? We're still shy by about $1 billion according to that metric. So this is just a terrible, terrible lease that will not benefit anybody but the wealthy individuals who are involved and own Therm Spa. And here we have a video of the cutting down. I'll bring this up for you in just a second here. It's catastrophic what is taking place. And I mean that when I say it, because they are literally destroying a forest.
And here I will, you just saw the image with all the trees there. And, well, this is what it looks like now.
It's all gone. All gone.
800 plus trees.
Mm-hmm. Which means that a lot of wildlife. Wildlife, insects, whatever, vermin, if you want to call it, squirrels, chipmunks, birds, owls, yada, yada. It's gone. It's gone.
Yeah.
Their habitat is finished.
Janet Wilson on Twitter said, during a climate emergency, clear-cutting healthy, mature trees is criminal.
Yeah, thanks, Doug.
Yep. Another person on Twitter, you lose access to a public asset that we fucking paid for. Meanwhile, Ford, the corrupt criminal clown, is still on his 19-week vacation while allowing this monstrosity to be built that will allow his donors to illegally launder money while also forcing us to pay for repairs. Kind of a harsh take. But understandable take, considering if you're putting all the pieces together of the things that we seem to know to be true about the manner in which he operates. Now, it seems yesterday, it seems that they didn't want to see this because there were barriers put there. But of course, they didn't bury it 360 degrees around, so people still got to see it. And it seems that there was a press conference yesterday, and I'm doing this from memory, unfortunately, because I cannot find where I saw it written. But somebody had asked about the trees specifically, and the person from the government that was there pretty much said during that press conference, that will be the only question we will take about the trees. And then the next journalist that came up said, I think we'll ask whatever damn questions we want. Thank you very much.
Yes.
So the government said, yeah, we're going to cut down 800 mature trees. We're going to try to hide it there, put some barriers in front of it so that none of you see it. Oh, you ask us about the trees. Okay, we'll answer this question, but there'll be no more.
Quoth the Reverend Nevermore.
Let's see how that works out for you, honey. So yes, according to the Global article by Isaac Callan and Colin DeMello, Ford government has finally released the terms of the lease it signed in 2022 with the Austrian company responsible for building a massive waterfront spa at Ontario Place, including rental payments that will be based on the company's revenues. Oh, look at that. They get rent geared to revenues. A company gets rent geared to income.
Yeah, but us? Me? Nah, you're
Interesting.
screwed. You're on your own.
Infrastructure Ontario published the lease it signed with Therm on Thursday, with the government touting the benefits it claims the deal will bring for taxpayers and underscoring the fact that public land has been lent to the spa company, not sold. At least there's that. Details of the lease, first reported by Global News last year, show the government has agreed to a 75-year deal with Therm, with the option to extend the deal by a further 20 years. The lease is set to begin in 2025. Gee, it must be nice for a company to be so sure that they'll be around for at least 75 years.
You think?
Yes. I mean, we all open our companies thinking that we'll be around forever. Don't get me wrong. But this is a big investment, and they're looking for a lot of guarantees of certain types. So rent geared to income sure makes it way more possible to be operational for 75 years consecutively. I don't know what it is with the Conservatives signing us onto these long ass deals. FIPA was 31 years. This lease is 75. Jeez. Our government is proud to have Therm Canada. Therm Canada. That's cute. As a development partner. It's Therm Australia. They just opened a Canadian subsidiary. Our government is proud to have Therm Austria as a development partner on this once-in-a-generation project. Kinga Surma, Minister of Infrastructure, who is not available for questions about the lease on Thursday, said in a statement. I bet she wasn't. As the government had previously highlighted, the deal won't allow Therm to run a shopping mall, casino, or condo towers at the Ontario Place site. Oh, sure. The deal will not allow Therm to run a shopping mall, casino, or condo towers at the Ontario Place site, but doesn't mean that they won't allow other people to do it, or the government itself even. Right? It's the words that are not said. You got to pay attention for. The company is also set to pay full property taxes to the City of Toronto. The government estimates Therm will pay close to $2 billion over the course of the 95-year lease, including rental payments and maintenance payments for the land. Therm is expected to pay $1.1 billion in rent payments while it runs a water park and spa on the site, and it's also committed to a further $855 million in maintenance payments to the government. Now, if the cost of doing this is more than $855 million plus $1.1 billion plus $2 billion, and we're paying all of it up front, this seems like a rather sucky deal. It's going to be a great benefit for taxpayers. Really, how much is it costing you to build that parking garage in the first place? And how much is it costing you to do all this? Is it more than $4 billion? Because if it is, that's a bad deal.
Yeah.
Just saying. Therm is tied to 2 rent payments the lease suggests. The first minimum rent will be a 3.5% of the assessed value of Ontario Place, indexed to inflation and estimated to be $1.95 million in 2032. So 3.5% of $1.95 million. It sounds like a lot of money, but for the size of this deal, it's not. In years when the company brings in higher revenue, beginning in 2034, it will also pay a so-called performance rent, which the government calculates could be an extra $2.7 million per year. Now, I don't mind the concept of a performance rent. In this case, rent geared to income, right? You're making more income like this, you hand in a little more. It's actually a little NDP-ish. Now, whether or not these rates are sufficient for the deal is a whole other issue.
Well,
But
also consider
that concept itself is not bad.
But corporations get it. We don't.
Exactly. Between
Socialism for the wealthy, rugged
yes,
individualism.
it would be really nice. Hey, I just got laid off from my job now, so does my rent go down?
Oh, no. You have to pay the same amount. Well, wait a second. Now I don't have any income.
I run a
Doesn't matter.
home-based business, but this year was a little slower than the others. Does my rent come down?
Nope.
Oh, okay. So it's only for Austrian companies that sign potentially 95-year leases.
That
Okay.
also have never built a damn thing yet anywhere, and the company is less than
Yes.
20 years of.
Yes. Oh, like Skippy. 20 years of existence hasn't built a damn thing.
Nothing.
Oh, I'm sorry, Gits and Cubs. That might have been a little petty.
No, it's fine. It's true.
Yeah. Between 2034 and 2044, the government expects Therm to pay $84 million, $47 million in rent, and $37 million in maintenance payments. Province's parking obligations. The lease also confirms the government agreed to provide Therm with at least 1,800 parking spaces, with plans to build a garage with a total of 2,500.
Yeah.
So all the parking spaces are not for Therm.
No. How much you want to bet? You want to bet he's going to put in 2,500 parking. Well, it's going to be for the Science Center, and Budweiser needs a little bit more parking space there, but
because the concerts
we're
at the
pivoting.
Budweiser Stadium are going to be going on at the same time that the spa is open.
Well, we're pivoting. We're pivoting. Yeah, exactly. There's not very many dates. We're going to pivot from the Therm Spa, and we're going to put a casino in, because it turns out that the demand for the spa was not as high as we thought it would be. So we're just going to open a casino instead.
Yeah.
You know that's what's going to happen.
It's like, what spa do you go to? Well, I mean, it has a water park and stuff, so I guess so. But it's like 1,000. Okay. If the government fails to provide parking in time for Therm to open, potentially in 2030, then it is set to pay a penalty of $5 per space per day, with the total fee around $2.2 million for every year it doesn't have parking in place. Infrastructure Ontario said the lease means the government can use temporary parking within 650 meters of the site while it builds the new garage, but it hopes to build the parking lot before the spa begins operating. So you know what, Kits and Cubs, we might actually go through all of this and have built ourselves a big parking garage where things flood and nothing else might happen.
Nothing else might
afterwards.
Happen. Well, and
that is actually a distinct possibility given how this deal is written.
Interesting comment from Linda. That's the other thing. I read Dougie appears to have given up on the underground parking idea and wants to do so with a high-rise structure.
Well, it would be a whole lot. Yes, it might be a blight on the landscape, but it would be a whole lot less expensive.
This is true.
That's for sure. Huge questions remain over where the parking garage will be located. The government originally planned to build the parking underground beside the lake, but more recently, Ontario Premier Doug Ford has mused about building the structure on the grounds of Exhibition Place. Quote, "We haven't confirmed the underground parking space because it costs so much to build underground," Ford said in July, days after he proposed building a tunnel under the 401. It's too costly to build a parking garage underground, but let's build the world's longest
traffic tunnel.
Oh my God, the inconsistency from day to day.
Look, and if you think the Big Dig was expensive, consider that the 401 through the city of Toronto is 18 lanes wide and has millions of cars on it every day. It's the busiest stretch of highway on planet Earth. That is by the Guinness Book of World Records, by the way. I'm not making that up. Do you know how deep they're going to have to dig and how much shoring work will have to be done? Just the soil samples alone to determine what the depth would be for the TBM.
Yeah. I'm just building a highway, building a tunnel, building a parking garage.
Just take the 407 back. Just take it back.
It's like, I understand that there are jobs created with this type of stuff like this, so I can't say that none of this puts food on your table or gets your kids educated or something, but it's just, again, you look at the province, we've got kids in care sleeping in office spaces. We've got a homelessness and addiction issue. We have all the schools still don't have filters in them so that kids can breathe cool air, or air conditioning so that they can study in June. The long-term care centers are not that great. And it's like, but our priority has to be building a parking garage.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, this guy. Ford said in July, we'd like to build as much on top without prohibiting the view. Those conversations, Infrastructure Ontario said Thursday, are still ongoing. During its release of the lease, the Ford government was at pains to stress the public parkland benefits the deal would bring as 800 trees die or are murdered. In the lease, Therm has committed to creating almost 16 acres of new parkland facility, which amounts to roughly 20 football fields. The new parkland, the province said, would more than double the size of Trillium Park, which currently sits at the site. Therm is also committed to maintaining free public access to the entire shoreline. The government said Therm is spending around $200 million on parkland, while the facility itself is meant to cost about $500 to build. $500 million, that would be. While the government is adamant that those benefits will be provided by Therm and that it won't help the company with its construction costs, public money has already been spent on the site. Government officials touted the benefits of Therm's project, including $294 million towards Ontario's GDP, 2,000 jobs during the construction phase, and $84 million in revenue to the province from Therm for rent and maintenance payments from 2034 to 2044. On Thursday, Infrastructure Ontario CEO Michael Lindsay said the government had spent, quote, hundreds of millions to get the site ready for the private company to build. Oh, yes, of course, we're paying for that part.
Mm-hmm.
So the trees that came down yesterday, that you paid for that. That includes, well, there you go, that includes cutting down trees, which Lindsay said has started now that it is October because birds and bats are no longer in their nesting season. Quote, all trees are replaced at a 2-to-1 ratio and mature trees are going to be replaced at a 6-to-1 ratio, Lindsay said. The net effect of all of this is 1,300 additional trees. After answering the question about the tree removals, the moderator of the there we go. After answering the question about the tree removals, the moderator of the technical briefing cut in to say officials would be taking no more questions on trees. And that's when the journalist came in and said, "Oh yeah, you will be."
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to ask the questions, and you can either dance around them or answer them. But
we will be asking them. Yes.
You don't tell us what we get to ask you.
Who said?
A dictator would say that.
I know that, but who are these communication staffers who arrive in these places? This like no name, no, right? People always like, yeah, we will not be taking questions, telling journalists like you will not be asking questions about this. It's like, oh, that's cute. You're new here, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
Why the Ford government decided to release the contract with Therm more than 2 years after it was agreed was unclear. Taking heat, change the channel.
Yeah.
Officials with Infrastructure Ontario were ordered to begin work on releasing the contract roughly 2 weeks ago by the Ministry of Infrastructure, which ultimately controls the political decision. Quote, when Infrastructure Ontario received direction from the ministry to release the lease, we've been planning to do so for the past couple of weeks, Lindsay told reporters Thursday. I would refer you to the Ministry of Infrastructure for specifics in respect to dates of direction. Lindsay also said, quote, it had always been the position of Infrastructure Ontario that the details of Therm lease would be made public, but did not explain the logic behind the timing. A spokesperson for the ministry, so basically, no, we always intended to do this.
Mm-hmm.
No, we've been planning it for the past couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the question is why now?
Yes.
Well, we had always intended to. Why now? Well, we've been working on it for a while. Why now?
Yeah.
Why now?
No answer.
A spokesperson for the Minister of Infrastructure did not respond to questions over the timing from Global News in time for publication. Ontario has the right to terminate the lease early with 5 years' notice after the Therm facility has been in operation for 10 years. An official opening date has not been set for the attraction, with 2030 a mooted date for the completion of the parking garage included in the lease. On Thursday, Therm also didn't give a date but said that construction would begin as soon as the site was ready and that it was hoping to get that stage finished as quickly as possible. There you go.
Let's let's go back because this is all part and parcel and connect each other. I'm going to share something on the screen here for you.
Ah, yes. I remember that.
And I'll read it for those of you listening. The Ontario Science Centre. The grift goes like this. The Ontario Science Centre opened in 1969, designed to last 250 plus years. I thought it was 300. Either way, longer than I'll be around. 5 years ago, a developer family close to Doug Ford bought 60 plus acres adjacent to the Science Centre. And I'll show it to you on a map here in a second. 1 month later, Ford announces the last stop on the new Ontario Line subway will be the Science Centre. This week, and this is 3 months ago, Ford closes the Science Centre immediately, permanently. Its property, in yellow, which you'll see in a second, will be repurposed. His engineering report says the Science Centre needs maintenance, does not say it needs to be closed. Ford is away on vacation. Construction and demolition equipment are already on site across the road, set to go to work before the public can intervene. Ford, never known for moving fast, unveils and executes a plan to turn a world-class Ontario icon into condos on a Friday, then disappears before anyone can answer the phone at Queen's Park. Cha-ching. The same family that bought up property along the cancelled Highway 413 route when Ford resurrected the highway to nowhere. The value of the family's land went up $8.3 billion. And let's just have a look at this, shall we? So in yellow, that's the Ontario Science Centre, and in red is the family-owned plot of land that I showed you just a few minutes ago. And why is this all connected? Because they're going to relocate the Science Centre to where Ontario Place is. And they're going to make it a third of the size, and they're going to cost us several $billion. I'm going to put a link to that article in the chat. It's a Reddit article, so choose whether or not you want to have a look at that. But it all ties together. Ford is padding the pockets of his rich developer friends, doing it at our expense. And remember, 1 in 12 schools have the same roof panels that the designed to last 250-year Ontario Science Centre has. 1 in 12. But they have no budget to replace theirs. But according to Dougie, those roof panels are ready to collapse. According to engineers, they had actually, and there was a work permit issued, or requested. I don't know if it was actually ever issued, but there was a work permit requested to do work on the roof before any of this took place. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it was ever granted or not, and the work certainly hasn't been done, but you had an engineering firm that said they'd volunteer their time to determine what needed to be done. You had an architectural firm that said they would volunteer their time to redesign whatever needed to be redesigned, and you had construction crews who were willing to do things at a reduced rate. One guy said, "I'll foot the bill." What do we get from Dougie? Silence. Silence. Why? Because Dougie doesn't want to wear a pair of cement shoes at the bottom of Lake Ontario. That's what it boils down to. Because he screwed over his developer buddies, who we all know are not exactly above board on every single thing they do. Screwed them over with the Greenbelt deal because the amount of people in Ontario that lost their ever-loving minds, and I was one of them, he had to back out of that deal.
He basically wrote a check that his ass couldn't cash.
Clearly. So now he's finding ways to make it work. Make it work in the benefit and interest of a wealthy developer family friend.
You said make it work. I just had an image of Tim Gunn from Project Runway walking into Doug Ford's office. Okay, this is a disaster, but make it work.
Yes. I was thinking Doug and the Slugs, making it work.
Oh, yes. It's true. Making it work.
Takes a little longer. Making it work. Takes a bit of time.
Actually, you should have taken the make it work line. You got the voice for it. All right. Other news, a little international. The Prime Minister is not in the country at the moment. He is in, I believe he's in Lebanon.
Oh,
what? No, not in Lebanon. No, he's not in Lebanon. No.
It's like under attack.
I'm sorry. That was silly. No, he's not in Lebanon. He's at the summit of the Francophonie. Lebanon is related to this, but it's not. So yes, he's headed to France. I think that was yesterday that he was gone. Yeah, he headed to France to attend the Francophonie Summit. So, for those who are not familiar with it, it's sort of like the Commonwealth, but for French language speaking nations. And the issue of the war will come up because Lebanon is a member of the Francophonie. French is a language that is spoken rather commonly there. So they will be that will come up. Leaders are expected to discuss ways to promote the French language, address geopolitical challenges, ensure the digital space reflects their linguistic and cultural diversity, and increase economic ties between countries. A senior government official speaking on background said Canada will be focused on strengthening ties with the French-speaking African countries. The federal government plans to announce funding for scientific research as well as French content and platforms. Ongoing crises in two of the Francophonie's member countries, Lebanon and Haiti, are also expected to weigh on the leaders at the summit. Canada is trying to arrange a conversation with representatives for Lebanon at the summit. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said Wednesday the international community must do everything it can to help avoid a bigger regional war, but recent developments have many fearing that is already happening. Exchanges of fire between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon erupted into broader violence in the last week, with Israel expanding its missile campaign targeting Hezbollah and launching ground operations across Lebanon's southern border. On Tuesday, Iran fired an estimated 200 ballistic missiles at Israel, and Israel has promised repercussions. A statement on September 27th from Francophonie Secretary General Louise Mushikiwabo expressed the solidarity of the Francophone family with the Lebanese people and called for all parties to seek a diplomatic solution to the conflict. In Haiti, a new report released September 30th said nearly half the country's population of more than 11 million people is experiencing crisis levels of hunger or worse as gang violence smothers life in the capital of Port-au-Prince and beyond. Some are actually even saying that there's a famine situation at this moment.
Wonderful.
Last week at the United Nations General Assembly, Trudeau urged global leaders to come together to build a serious and immediate plan to meet the humanitarian needs of Haitians. Canada will also have representation at the summit from Ontario, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and Quebec. Francophonie leaders are expected to make a decision on applications to join the International Francophonie body, including Nova Scotia's application for observer status. This is the fourth time Trudeau has attended the summit since he was first elected in 2015. And with that, as well, in another multilateral group, NATO, the new Secretary General, Mark Rutte, who used to be the leader of the Netherlands, he's now in place, and he's made his first visit to Ukraine since taking office. And while he was there, air raid sirens went off twice. So welcome to the new job, sir. Greeted by air sirens. And as I mentioned earlier with regard to the price of oil, what's going on with that in the United States. This is according to Reuters. Democratic U.S. President Joe Biden said on Thursday he will not negotiate in public when asked if he had urged Israel not to attack Iran's oil facilities. Israel has been weighing options to respond to Tehran's ballistic missile attack on Tuesday. The U.S. said then it would work with Israel to make sure Iran faced severe consequences. Of course, Iran's position is, like this, we've sent these rockets because there will be nothing else if you do not escalate. But we're talking Netanyahu. Not escalating is not in his wheelhouse.
Well, he likes to escalate to de-escalate. That's a quote from his government just the other day. We're going to escalate to de-escalate. What? So in other words, they're going to kill everyone. So that's how they de-escalate.
Yes. Biden earlier in the day contributed to a surge in global oil prices when he said Washington was discussing strikes on Iran's oil facilities. So maybe he should have said the United States is discussing a way to ensure that there will not be strikes on, rather than we're discussing strikes. Maybe. Then maybe not. As soon as you say oil facilities and strikes in the same sentence, whether you're talking about not or doing, talking about not in order to prevent them, it creates the risk that some might happen. And then prices go up anyway. So it may not have been a better option ultimately, now that I'm thinking about it. A U.S. official later said Washington does not believe Israel has decided yet on how to respond to Iran. Biden on Wednesday said the U.S. did not support any Israel strike on Iran's nuclear sites. And a couple of key quotes here. I don't negotiate in public, Biden told reporters when asked if he was telling Israel not to attack. Asked if he was worried an Israeli strike on Iran's oil facilities would raise oil prices, he said, quote, if a hurricane hits, prices are going to go up. So I don't know. Who knows? That's kind of a weird deflection there. Other things can make the price of oil go. Yeah, I know, but we're talking about this one specific thing. So could you answer on this one specific thing, please? Biden was also asked why he had not spoken to Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in recent days. He replied, because there's no action going on right now. So yeah, oil prices being affected, unfortunately. Yes, exactly, Donna Monroe. Biden is discussing strategies to make Kamala Harris lose the elections by causing oil prices to spike. Yes, about 30 days before the election day, while they're all running. See, things are good here. Look at the price of gas. And I was like, whoops. Can't point to that anymore. Back home in Canada, our friend Evan Scrimshaw, I'm guessing that there will be an article about it coming soon, but seems to be very happy that the Liberals have not supported the Bloc Québécois motion to boost OAS payments by 10% for everyone 65 to 74 in the nation. He says it was actually a smart decision. But according to Nanos, a survey says that most Canadians do support the expansion of old age security benefits, but economic experts call it a terrible policy. This is from CTV. Amid new polling indicating most Canadians support boosting old age security benefits by 10% for seniors, 65 to 74, a former Liberal finance minister and former Bank of Canada governor are warning the government not to pursue the policy change. According to a new Nanos research survey conducted for CTV News, more than 3 in 4 Canadians support or somewhat support the increase, with support strong across the country, across gender and age groups. The push to increase OAS is one of 2 key demands from the Bloc Québécois to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's minority Liberal government. Bloc leader Yves-François Blanchet has given the government until October 29th to help enact a pair of private members' bills, one of which proposes a 10% increase to the OAS for seniors 65 to 74 or risk an election before the new year. Earlier this week, the Bloc used its one opposition day of the fall sitting to present and later pass a symbolic motion on its OAS bill that asked for the government, quote, to take the necessary steps to ensure that a royal recommendation is granted as soon as possible. Despite the political pressure, a pair of former economic heavyweights told CTV News channel's Power Play host, Vashi Capellos, that the federal government can't afford to enact the expansion. And as we reported yesterday, the vote on that motion did succeed, but it did not succeed. It succeeded with the help of only about 4 or 5 Liberals who voted for it. Everybody else voted against it. Quote, it's really bad policy, said former Liberal Finance Minister John Manley. This is not something that should be done on a universal basis, meeting people's needs, especially the elderly. That's very important. But understand, this is not targeted to those who need it. This is universal. It's a bad idea. It's too expensive. There are many other priorities that the government needs to address well before this one, which leads me to think that there might be a counter-proposal on the guaranteed income supplement, because that does affect the poorest. Former Bank of Canada Governor David Dodge agreed. This is bad economics. Quote, the last thing we need to be spending money on at this point on time is boosting consumption for relatively well-off people, Dodge said. Quote, it's just terrible policy, both on economic grounds but on social grounds as well. This is the most favored generation. While most Liberal MPs voted against the Bloc's pension play, expressing concerns about the cost on the precedent of the potential program expansion, the proposal was supported by Conservative, New Democrat, and Green MPs, as well as a handful of Liberal backbenchers. The vote was non-binding, meaning the federal government does not have to act on it, because that's a motion. Motions are always non-binding. After the vote, Blanchet said if the Liberals think they'll get any more time on its ultimatum, they should think again. They have until a few days from now to go on with the royal recommendation, and if they do not, we will start as rapidly as next week to speak with other opposition parties in order to get ready to go into an election. But it seems that if the Bloc Québécois has used its 1 of 7 opposition days to present the motion it does not have the option of putting another one, at least before the end of this year, to bring the government down. Now, I don't know if at the beginning of the next calendar year there are more opposition days that come on. because I was hearing something on the news the other day saying that there were 22 actual opposition days scheduled for the entire run of Parliament until, I guess, the election, and 7 are coming now. I'm not so, like I said, I was under the impression up until I heard that yesterday that there were 7 for this entire. I might be using the wrong word here, session of Parliament. But if there are 22, then there will be other opportunities. But if there are just 7, then the bloc just used it. So them coming with another opposition day motion on October 29th or 30th, saying, let's say, they don't have that in their pocket, at least till New Year. So, right, if there are more coming after that. So I'm not sure how they're going to do that, because that means that they would absolutely have to get the NDP to sign on, because they've already used their day, because the NDP hasn't used theirs yet. And again, I highly suspect that October 29th, the day after the Saskatchewan election, with 2 other elections that have just closed, is not the day that the NDP and all its ground game staff in those 3 provinces will be wanting to start the process all over again for another election. I think they'll want some time off, a little break, maybe even Christmas with family and friends before they're ready to go at it again. So I don't think that the Bloc Québécois will have a dance partner if they want to work to do that. Well, sorry, we'll have a dance partner. They'll have the Conservatives. They won't have 2 dance partners that they will need at that time. In an interview on CTV Power Play on Wednesday, Government House Leader Karina Gould wouldn't rule out that the Liberals are still trying to find a path forward with the Bloc. Quote, I don't negotiate in public and I don't talk about those conversations, but I can say, and I think our government has demonstrated, that when it comes to good ideas to support Canadians, we are there for Canadians. She said, we are open to good ideas. Asked if, given the political dynamics and a majority House of Commons and public support for the boost to seniors' benefits, that the federal minority government will be pressured to acquiesce, Manley says, polls could say one thing today and a different thing tomorrow. It's foolish for leaders to run to follow anyway. They should be running to lead. And I think the need to give an explanation to people about why this is poor policy is evident by the polling result, he said. In an interview with CTV's Power Play last week, Parliamentary Budget Officer Yves Giroux said it may be, quote, a bit tricky for the federal government to meet its financial anchors if it acquiesces to the Bloc's demand to expand the OAS. Giroux calculates that demand would come with an annual price tag of more than $3 billion, with a total cost of $16.1 billion over 5 years. Last year, Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland pledged new fiscal guardrails aimed at limiting spending and deficits. And yes, taking on an extra $3 billion a year charge would definitely not help with meeting that. So there you go.
I'm still like, why did the cons voted to support this? Is it because the Liberals voted against it? That's my only thought. The room full of barking seals. Oh, they said they're not voting for it. We will vote for it.
My only speculation on that is because seniors 65 and over are the only demographic group with whom the Liberals are leading, and that's usually the Conservatives group. So, hey, we want that back, so we'll support that. But now, like I said, it does put Skippy in an interesting position, and I'm wondering why the question hasn't come yet. It's like, you've been spending the last 2 years complaining about expensive, bloated government programs and how reckless spending contributes to spiraling inflation. Because why are you championing $3 billion additional a year for a demographic that primarily does not need it?
So let's just develop a UBI so everybody gets a stipend every month.
Mm-hmm. No matter because basically seniors have some type of UBI, right? The GIS
guaranteed income supplement
guarantees that you have a minimum income.
Mm-hmm. Correct. Now that being
said, so we have it for seniors.
So, but there's three programs in place: CPP, Canada Pension Plan, OAS, Old Age Security, and GIS.
And you could probably get rid of OAS and GIS if you merge them into a UBI.
Yes, agreed. And we could also get rid of EI and welfare if we had a UBI.
Yes, and ODSP.
And ODSP, correct. So we can get rid of
all the disability supports in every province. Like this, all those could be getting rid of, and we could have one program, less bureaucracy, and everybody knows what they're getting.
And
it can be regionally set as well.
Well, one program that will, what is it again? What's the saying? A rising tide lifts all boats. No matter what your boat, maybe you're floating on a piece of driftwood, just hanging on, but it's still going to lift you up. I mean, yeah, and this is the thing too, Linda. It gives the Liberals headway to open up some room with younger voters.
Yes, that's where the competition is
Mhm.
this time around.
They'll go
So-
after Gen Z and the millennials, and they'll forget about us again. Which is ironic when you consider that the Prime Minister is a member of Generation X.
Right? Right?
Yeah, we got it. I really do. I know we've tried a couple of times, but I'd really like to have a sit down with them, if we could, a face to face. You know, the two of us sit there and have like a podcast style show with the PM, if we could. I'd love to be able to do that. We'll keep trying.
Yep.
We might get there someday. We don't know, but we'll keep trying.
Economist Trevor Toome, for whom we have a lot of respect, actually lays it out. Trevor Toome, why boosting old age security would be a costly mistake. So I want to read this in because initially it isn't right. You'll ask the average person, should we be doing more for seniors? Well, absolutely, we should be doing more for seniors. I mean, everybody expects to be a senior one day.
Well, I plan on becoming one.
Right?
Because if you don't plan on becoming one, it means you tend to shuffle off this mortal coil before you get there.
Right. So, I mean, everybody, getting old is a privilege, but
Yes.
not all of us get there, but we plan on it. So, everybody's saying, well, we're all going to get there one day, and nobody wants to be at that stage of their life and having to try to, you worked all your life, as the conservatives keep on saying, you worked hard, you paid your taxes and played by the rules. And then you get to your retirement age and your life isn't what you thought it was going to be. So, on principle, instinctively, right, our natural inclination would be, oh, well, yes, let's do more for our seniors. Well, as Parliament appears to be approaching its final days, political maneuvering is in full swing, with opposition parties using their leverage to extract concessions from the government in exchange for their continued support. Among the demands is the Bloc Québécois call for a 10% boost to old age security payments for those aged 65 to 74 to match a boost 2 years ago for those 75 and over. They also want to ban trade negotiators from opening Canada's heavily restricted markets in dairy, eggs, poultry, and other supplied managed items. The Bloc gave the government until the end of October to comply. Just yesterday, a non-binding motion was passed in the House calling on the government to pass the Bloc's legislation into law. The motion, which had the support of the Bloc, CPC, NDP, Green, and 5 Liberal MPs, passed by a count of 181 to 143. There is plenty to say about both demands of the legislation. Bloc leader Yves-François Blanchet claims these measures, quote, would be good for everybody. He's wrong. Both measures increase government assistance to those doing relatively well while others bear the cost. Supply management raises grocery costs for families and stifles innovation, investment, and growth by protecting inefficient producers. Worse, tying future trade negotiations' hands jeopardizes overall market access for Canada ahead of free trade renewal discussions with the US in 2026. The morality of allowing a few thousand well-connected producers to effectively hold 42 million Canadians and their $3 trillion economy hostage is questionable. Of course, all parties strongly support the system, and there is little chance of that changing anytime soon. So let's focus on the other demand, boosting the OAS. And unfortunately, kids, at this point, the article goes behind a paywall. So I will see if I can find it from other means. And yes, I can. So if you'll just hold on with me there, I will be able to continue. No, it doesn't actually. It gives me a. It gives me a the thing. Pardon?
Who published the article?
The hub.
Oh, okay.
But so yes, so because it's the hub, unfortunately, the service that I use to go back and read articles that are behind paywalls does not work with the hub, so I cannot finish reading it. But Trevor Toome says that it would be a costly mistake. Now, however, because I am resourceful, as you know, I will go onto Mr. Toome's Twitter feed, and hopefully he might have a little bit more to say about that there. But somebody asked him, sorry if I missed something, but this article does not seem to acknowledge that OAS is clawed back at higher income levels. He says, it does, but thresholds are high, so not very well targeted. I don't go on about it, but gave a link to this instead. So there we go. Yep, nothing more about that from Trevor on his own Twitter feed. So darn, that's unfortunate because I really respect Trevor and really would have loved what he had to say about why it was a bad idea. Unfortunately, it will not allow me to read that to you. I'm so sorry, Kits. That's the type of article that should not be behind paywall.
I know what you're saying.
We have some vital information for you, the nation, 3/4 of which believes that this would be a good idea, to tell you why it wouldn't be. But you can't see it.
It's all about commerce in the end, right?
I know that, but you can't. Those are the articles that you put in front of paywall.
Agreed.
And then people read it and say, hey, this is good quality writing. That encourages
Maybe I'll
them
sign
to
up.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then again, I can see the other side of the argument. Oh, this is an article that a lot of people want to read, so let's put it behind the paywall and get them to sign up.
Yes. It's a strange tactic.
Yeah. It's
almost like the reverse billing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Because you have to pay for news.
Yes.
Right? News is not free. It takes work.
And it costs money.
It costs money to put it together. But you'll notice that it's the national posts and the Suns that are never behind paywall.
Yes, that's the funny thing, right?
The ones that spread the greatest amount of misinformation are the ones that are not behind paywall, and the ones that are giving quality information are the ones that are. So it might be a good idea for the ones behind paywall to show a little leg now and then. Darn. Well, I guess I will just have to send a note to Mr. Toom and ask him if he'd like to come on the show and explain why that is.
Yes.
All right, Kits and Cubs. Mr. Grizzly, do we have a show?
Yes, sir, we do.
All right, Kits and Cubs. That's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless, so please tell your peeps and poops all about us. If you would like to make sure you don't miss an episode, you don't have to, thanks to the Ray Girl, because she sponsors our pod page. If you scan that QR code that appeared underneath my chin, that will bring you right there. And if you are listening, you go to podpage.com/the True North Eager Beaver, lowercase letters with a hyphen between each one of those words. And there, if you click subscribe, when we have something fresh off the bandwidth, it comes directly to you. Now, if you'd like to support us in other ways, then please make like Kit Elaine and have an awesome day, people. But surf yourself on down to the True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page, where we have buttons for you. Like, share, and subscribe. If you click on those, well, it brings us lots of joy. And we do like to be happy. So why not give us a little happy by clicking our buttons?
As a
Thank you so very
footnote,
much.
as a footnote, if you're having trouble with typing the address in for the pod page, you can just go to Google, type in pod page, and then type in the True North Eager Beaver. It'll open up and it'll be at the top of the search.
All right.
I'll just show you that right here, right now. So I just went to Google. I typed in pod page space the True North Eager Beaver. Boom! It's right at the very top, right here. Then it takes you to the page.
There you go.
So there you go.
Yeah. For the kids who are watching live, Kit Saucy just put a link here for you. That's the link to the all candidates meeting debate, where it is that she is running for a seat. Saucy, I did watch the first half hour of it before I had to go to bed last night, and so far you're doing really well.
I will have to check that out.
There you go. The audio's a little lack of clarity. I had to put headphones in, and I had to put the volume all the way up to 100 so I can catch everything going on. But there you go. No worries. Oh, Kitsasi says full disclosure, Mr. Beaver, I may have borrowed democracy, something you do, for my closing remarks.
Totally cool. All good.
Joy. Oh, that makes me happy. That gives me such a warm fuzzy inside. Thank you so much. Please, please use it liberally. Use it liberally. Oh, thank you. What a kind compliment. Well, my work here is done. Bye. I'm off for the weekend. Oh, that makes me so happy. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Um, all right. Now, if you would like to support us in other ways, the QR code by Mr. Grizzly's head brings you to our coffee page. That's coffee, ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, lowercase letters, all in one word. And if you go there, you will find our tip jar. So if you like the product that we produce for you and you would like to encourage us to do more, because there are costs associated with putting the show together, and you would like to help us with those costs, please do leave us a little something there, whatever you can. Right?
We
We
appreciate
recommend.
it all.
Yeah, we appreciate everything. And if you are not able to, please do not worry. Do not worry at all, because the gift of your attention and participation is the one that means the most to us. And well,
To that,
yes,
the more viewers, the more participation, the more opportunities we have to earn income via YouTube. So yeah, there
yes,
you go.
exactly. Because YouTube pays us per watch a little bit, so
Mm.
that matters. And of course, if you are on YouTube, we have our membership tiers that you can join as well to help us. And we do have the super chat function if you want to donate as we go. But donating through coffee, if you want to make sure that we get the most possible out of your donation, is the way to go. Or just a direct e-transfer to True North Eager Beaver at gmail.com will also do the trick. That way we get 100% of what it is that you donate. But a donation to our coffee page, very, very, very appreciated. It's very simple and way to use it. And like I said, we appreciate everything. But we do want to hear from you. So as I mentioned, True North Eager Beaver at gmail.com is our email address. Please, 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 please do write to us, because we want to know what's on your mind. All right. If you would like to communicate with us in other ways, then please do, Gits and Cubs. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Write to us on our Twitter feed at True Eager, our Facebook page, True North Eager Beaver, or if you happen to be watching on YouTube, there's comment section down there. Let us know what you think. We do try to read absolutely everything, and we appreciate you, your suggestions, your comments, everything. It means the world to us. It helps us a lot in the preparation of our show. So thank you for all that you do there. Because democracy is something that you do, we have some provincial elections coming up in British Columbia, Saskatchewan, and New Brunswick. So plan your vote, talk to people about voting, get some people to come and vote, go vote with you. I was mistaken earlier, because I did think that polls were open in New Brunswick early already. They are not yet. So I apologies for that incorrect advice. But they will be open, I believe, next week. They start at some point. But I will have dates for you. I've researched that. So next week I'll be able to give you that information when we're doing the shows. But do research your candidates. Do go to candidates' debates if they are there. Find out what you need to know. Plan your vote. And if there's a candidate that you particularly support, why not offer some help? Do some door knocking, stuff some envelopes, stuff like that. It's always very, very important. All right, get involved. It's your democracy. From the Beaver Lodge, this is your Eager Beaver saying it could be a tough world out there, so please be kind to and gentle with yourself. Too much noise here for words of wisdom, says Mr. Grizzly. Okay, so I guess some construction started there. Before we go, not words of wisdom, but we did mention the thing about Danielle Smith and the chemtrails the other day. It seems that she may have gotten a bit of a response from that.
A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. I believe that the U.S. government had somewhat responded. Basically, I've got Dean's article here. They say basically, they said she's drunk. So did NORAD. I'm not sure that that's specifically what they said. But Sean Amato, who is a journalist, posted a tweet saying, "So I was emailing the Pentagon. They say they don't know what Alberta Premier Daniel Smith is talking about. Quote, I realize this will not convince any chemtrail believers. I'm just doing my job over here." And the OSD Pentagon PA Mailbox Duty Officer Press Operations to Sean. Hi, Sean. We do not have anything to provide. You'd have to ask her what she meant. Also, NORAD would be the appropriate group to speak about joint US-Canada air operations over Canada. When the Pentagon says you're crazy, the Premier is a conspiracy loon, you've made it. Alberta, finally, you're on America's radar.
For all the wrong reasons.
Evidence-based statements are critical. If Smith thinks that chemtrail conspiracy theory is a thing, she's not basing her opinion on evidence. There is zero evidence of any government spraying harmful mind control, population control, or magic mist into the atmosphere anywhere, ever. Even giving the chemtrail conspiracy room to breathe as a possibility is wholly disqualifying as a sworn officer of the province of Alberta. Justifying those insane comments means she's not evidence-based or interested in any data, and data is the only truth. If she's pandering to the religiously insane right, that's one thing. If she genuinely believes the US government is targeting Albertans with a magic mind control dust, that's different and even more dangerous than the previous. This means she willingly ignores data in favor of ignorance based on a set of core beliefs devoid of fact, the definition of crazy. It's also pure disinformation meant to keep crazy supporters suspicious of the government. It's on brand for a woman who ate horse dewormer to preempt respiratory infections and a person who thinks trans kids are demonic manifestations who don't deserve fundamental human rights. Says Dean on that one.
Well, remember, she said just the other day, I've checked with my airports. You don't own them, nor does the province. Airports are federal land, you chowderhead.
Yes. And then we had some beep, beep, beep backing the truck up with Smith's spokesperson, Savannah Johansson, saying Tuesday in a statement, the Premier was simply sharing what she had heard from some folks over the summer on this issue. She was not saying that she believed the U.S. government was using chemtrails in Alberta, but you were still with a mic and a camera on, said it, didn't you? Johansson added,
Why say it?
Yes, the Premier has heard concerns from many Albertans about this topic. In response, the provincial government looked into the issue and found no evidence of chemtrails occurring in Alberta. This is where self-edit function comes in pretty handy. During the town hall in response to an audience member's concerns about chemtrail spraying over Edmonton, Smith said, the best I have been able to do is talk to the woman who is responsible for controlling the airspace, and she says no one's allowed to go up and spray anything in the air. When the crowd hooted and booed, Smith said, that's what she told me. Smith added, the other person told me that if anyone is doing it, it is the U.S. Department of Defense. Notice she doesn't say who the other person is, just the other person told me. Smith said if the U.S. is hitting Alberta with chemtrails, her hands are somewhat tied as a regional leader in Canada. I have some limitations in what I can do in my job. I don't know that I would have much power if that's the case, if the U.S. Department of Defense is spraying us. Yeah. Spokesperson from NORAD in an email said NORAD and the U.S. Northern Command are not conducting any flight activities in Canada that involve the spraying of chemicals. While streaks of condensation can be visible in the sky after planes fly by, some people have claimed the streaks are chemicals purposely sprayed by unknown entities for nefarious purposes. It's literally just condensation. Experts, including health law professor Timothy Caulfield, have dismissed it as a baseless conspiracy theory. Timothy Caulfield, who was also picked up an award recently. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I remember people congratulating him just a couple of days ago. Caulfield is with the University of Alberta, said Smith is doing the public a disservice. Quote, in this age of misinformation, in this age where conspiracy theories are having a detrimental impact on democracies around the world, it's just horrifying to see a political leader not simply and explicitly correct the conspiracy theory, Caulfield said in an interview. It's maddening. And the fact that it is maddening is what should be motivating you if you live in Saskatchewan, British Columbia, or New Brunswick to go and vote. because you've got 3 other premiers that are quite willing to entertain similar theories. All right.
We don't have time to get into it today, but we can maybe deal with it next week. John Rustad of the BC Conservative has said that the ICBC, which is the Insurance Corp of British Columbia,
Yes.
he called it a bloated monopoly and a broken system, and announces a new plan to end the insurance company's monopoly across the province. It is a provincially funded insurance program, which is the 4th lowest insurance costs in the country after Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and I forget where else. But because it's a provincial fund, if you have a good year driving record, you get a rebate the next year in the form of money. He's just pandering to his wealthy corporate overlords. So maybe we can talk about that next week, but I really got to go. I got to get the doggy out because the noise here is too much.
Yep, absolutely. So, yeah, we'll talk about that. That's a bad move. Mr. Grizzly, please cue the cock. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music. And I was able to find it, Kits and Cubs. The award is not just any award that Mr. Caulfield got, is he was became a member of the Order of Canada. So I guess there were more inductees yesterday, and you will notice in the photo he is there with his amazing daughter Allison, but also Sandra Oh. I would be fan beavering so hard. All right, kids, have an absolutely fantastic and beaverific weekend. We'll see you on Monday.
I'll see you.